protests, fierce battles, and war. Coming up, Fox News reporters take you behind the scenes for the inside stories of their most dangerous assignments. From covering riots to confronting rebels to defying death in an out-of-control plane. You'll find out why our reporters do it and how they survive. Assignment Danger is next after the latest headlines.
They are blasting right now, right behind us. This is the third time that air raid sirens have been going off today.
In some spots, every home is burned to the ground except for the brick fireplaces. In other spots, it's very random.
Soon we're led into a makeshift jungle lab. Camouflage covers the treetops so government planes can't see what's going on.
Okay, raise your foot. Oh, that's impossible.
Have you ever wanted to be a reporter? Do you know what it takes to cover a big story or how to react in the face of a perilous situation? In the next hour, you'll find out. Welcome to our special. I'm John Scott. The stars of this program are Fox News Channel's reporters, producers, and cameramen. They'll take you behind the scenes of some of their biggest and most dangerous assignments, and you'll find out how they survived. First up, as bombs fell, Rita Cosby continued reporting live from Belgrade.
It's a nightmare.
The last major military conflict of the 20th century was among its most controversial and brutal. The war in Kosovo claimed tens of thousands of Serb and Albanian lives, as well as journalists who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was in this extremely tense climate that in May 1999, Fox News accompanied Reverend Jesse Jackson and other religious leaders on a mission seeking to win freedom for 3 American POWs. It was probably the most frightening experience of my career. Almost immediately after we arrived in Belgrade, the anti-aircraft fire was lighting up the night sky, the NATO bombs were dropping, the ground was physically shaking. It was very scary, and you never felt safe.
You could see the panes of glass in the windows shaking. I don't think any of us, even though we'd been traveling for 24 or 36 hours at that point, I don't think any of us wanted to sleep.
We do have some breaking news to report.
All live shots had to be done by phone. There was no TV transmission because NATO cruise missiles had knocked out the Serb broadcasting tower. For days, the Fox crew and Jackson's delegation endured almost no sleep and constant evacuations from buildings deemed as targets, while NATO continued to wage its assault on Serbia.
They are blasting right now, right behind us. This is the third time that air raid sirens have been going off today. And I will tell you, a lot of people in the delegation with Jesse Jackson, including lots of members of the media, are quite nervous right now.
I remember when I did that particular live shot on the cell phone, I had people screaming in the background saying, "Get out of the building, this building is a target." I was physically choked up, and I really thought this could be it.
You never really think of the danger. You try not to think of it. But then again, it's always in the back of your mind that, maybe a bomb could drop on you.
We were also confronted with intense anti-American sentiments, followed by armed guards every step of the way, never quite sure if they were out to hurt or protect us. When Jesse Jackson broke down in tears upon learning the POWs would be freed, it seemed too good to be true.
The soldiers have now been told they're being released, and they are rejoicing.
This is a message to Bill Clinton. Don't quarrel with Serbs, ever.
Fox News took a risk by conducting an exclusive interview with Arkan, the notorious Serb paramilitary leader believed to be responsible for raping and killing thousands of Muslims. We asked a question that we hoped would spare the POWs and us from being murdered by his troops on our way out.
Can you guarantee safe passage for them and for our delegation tomorrow?
Of course, I can guarantee the secure path to Yugoslavia territory. We will have a free way to go back, of course.
Even though this man was an indicted war criminal, I thought if I looked him in the eye, person to person, and got him to go on record, then maybe we would get out alive and we would not be killed as we left Serbia the next day. I thought it was the best way to ensure our safety.
Free at last, free at last. God Almighty, free at last.
The POWs and journalists returned home safely. Arkan was mysteriously assassinated months later after a peace deal was finally forged.
Yeah, I think if there aren't journalists to tell the story, then they may never be known. So it is very worth, the risk of, I think, my life to tell the story of the hundreds of thousands that may have died.
Seeing those images of the war, seeing people actually killed, it changed me. But I felt that it was critical as a journalist to go in and see the destruction firsthand, to see those mass graves, to report it for history, to be able to learn from man's inhumanity to man, and hope and pray that it never happens again. Rita Cosby, Fox News.
No question about it. Reporting from a war zone is nerve-wracking. Later in this special, Amy Kellogg will tell you what she endured while covering the horrors of the war in Chechnya. But first, Mike Emanuel tells you what he faced when he drove right into fires and tornadoes to bring the story to you.
At this point, officials are saying the fire is 0% contained. About 300 to 400 homes have been damaged or destroyed. We expect that number to increase. 35 to 45 mile per hour sustained winds, 55 mile per hour gusts. It is a mess out here.
Wildfires come with the territory when you are a reporter in the western United States.
In some spots, every home is burned to the ground except for the brick fireplaces. In other spots, it's very random. It reminds me a lot of some of the wildfires I covered in California, where you would see one home burning, the house in the middle not burning, and then the house up the block burning.
Los Alamos, New Mexico, the scene when a controlled burn flamed out of control.
Hopscotching from one rooftop to another, flames going from one tree to another, creating flames.
Mix in high temperatures, low humidity, and strong winds, and it's a chaotic scene.
The town is really burning down.
But this isn't your typical wildfire. Flames damaged some buildings on the grounds of the Los Alamos National Lab, known as the birthplace of the atom bomb. Both firefighters and reporters were very close to the smoke, flames, and the nuclear lab.
Government officials kept trying to reassure us that there was no damage in terms of the nukes.
There is no chance that there is any radioactivity in the air.
But you wonder. You definitely wonder whether you're putting yourself at long-term risk.
Back-to-back tornadoes smashed through downtown Fort Worth, Texas. One tornado is clocked at 206 miles per hour.
I remember it very well. It was pouring, raining, hailing, heavy winds, and basically you realize there are at least one, maybe two tornadoes on the ground and you're driving in their direction.
A deadly tornado blowing through downtown Fort Worth.
Looking for tornadoes in the dark is the exact opposite of what we tell the public to do in a natural disaster.
You definitely wonder if you're taking your life in your own hands at that point.
Some may consider it crazy, but that's the nature of the job. Adrenaline gets you there, and the need to tell the story keeps you going.
It's one of those stories where maybe you say a little prayer, maybe you cross your fingers, maybe you just hope that you're going to make it, but it's definitely one of those stories that you never forget.
Shoot that serial killer. That's a freaking F5.
May 1999, an F5 tornado, the worst kind, with winds up to 318 miles per hour, slams Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. We drive from Dallas to the scene in the dark.
Driving up there, the concern driving was, watch for debris, watch for downed power lines, that kind of thing.
Although Oklahoma and Texas are known as Tornado Alley, this is extreme.
Well, in the State Emergency Operations Center, we've activated all of the emergencies.
Powerful scenes like this one can have the effect of teaching the reporter a life lesson.
Realize if you've got your health, if you've got a home, you got your family, life's pretty good.
I need C-collars, I need boards, and I need O2 right now.
At this massive disaster, one lasting memory is how many in Oklahoma City put their community ahead of their personal needs.
We got you. We got this, bro. I got it. Okay. Hey, get that baby out. Hand us that baby. Got a baby. We got a baby. Everybody, y'all make a trail back here.
The positive, I would have to say, was the way the people in that community responded. You know, people helping neighbors. We saw people digging people out of rubble.
Let me get her off the seat, man. There's too many nails up there.
The hard work of the emergency crews paid off with some amazing rescues.
I got the baby. She's fine. She's fine.
Thank you. Thank you for saving me and my baby and my grandma.
Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Fires and tornadoes are frightening and very unpredictable. And unpredictable is the key word as our Fox News crews get caught in the middle when protests turn violent. That story when we continue. Welcome back to Assignment Danger. 30 years ago, the Vietnam War was the focus of violent and nonviolent demonstrations across America and around the world. Now, protesters have taken to the streets once again. Fox News is there, right in the middle, bringing you the latest reports.
The only way to get video like this is to jump right in the middle of the madness. Quebec City, Quebec, Canada, April 20th, 2001. Thousands of demonstrators rally outside a 10-foot-tall security fence, separating them from 34 world leaders, including President Bush, gathering to discuss free trade at the Summit of the Americas. The protesters are angry about being locked out, confronting the police and soldiers defending the perimeter, throwing rocks, bottles, even hockey pucks, police responding with water cannons, tear gas, and rubber bullets.
It's a little chaotic here right now. The police have actually pulled back from this area.
I'm there to cover the disturbances with the help of Fox News producer Carlos Van Meek, photographer Scott Wilder, and soundman John Hollywood Casala.
It was an extremely unpredictable story because you had no idea what would happen next. You knew there was tear gas coming, but you had no idea if there were bottles or rocks or if the crowd was going to turn on you.
It was kind of like nobody wanted us there. The police certainly didn't want us there because we were kind of probably getting in their way and escalating the situation, and the protesters certainly didn't want us there either.
It was a little unsettling to see these guys putting bandanas on, putting on masks, with knapsacks and backpacks. You knew that there weren't books in there. They came prepared to cause serious trouble, and they did.
The global satellite truck we're using is spray painted with graffiti, its windows smashed, and tempers flared.
I'm asking you a favor. You're talking about peaceful protest.
I'm not doing anything. You guys are trying to move me.
We catch demonstrators smashing paving stones into smaller pieces they then throw at the cops. But we stop taping when one guy makes it clear the show better be over.
When the protesters see you putting them on videotape, they're obviously not too happy to see that. So a few times they actually turned right at us and on us to throw the rocks and aim their anger and their hostility towards us.
At one point, police spot what they think is a bomb next to our SAT truck.
There's explosive. There's explosive. Hey, Steve, over here.
Get away.
Hey, we're dropping everything. We're dropping everything.
We were set, and I just saw everybody running from the back of the truck, protesters. Then I saw police running, and then the security we had for the truck screaming explosives. I just started saying, what? I just ripped my gear off and just ran across the street. It's like, Jesus, you know?
It turns out to be harmless. And the tear gas keeps raining down.
We kept trying to get into the satellite truck to escape the clouds of tear gas that were coming our way. Unfortunately, canisters were being thrown on top and under the truck, so all our ventilation that was coming into the truck was tear gas. So there was nowhere to go, and it was a miserable experience.
I couldn't breathe in there. And I was like, I have to try and find something outside. And when I opened the satellite truck door to get out, just smoke everywhere.
The situation is volatile, continues to change by the minute here.
Other colleagues have similar war stories. In July, correspondent Amy Kellogg dodged trouble in the streets of Genoa, Italy, during the G8 summit, where one protester was killed in a clash with police.
Everybody was fair game, and you just got the sense that you had no control over the situation, that the fighting, the struggling, the rock throwing, the bottle throwing could switch directions at any given moment. And in fact, journalists were targeted and in some cases beaten up.
And correspondent Brian Wilson had to get physical during World Trade talks in Washington last year.
I got into a little tussle late in the day. There was a conflict, a face-off between the protesters and mounted police, and the guy that you see there struggling, that's me. It got a little ugly right there, and got pushed around a little bit, shoved a little bit, got kicked, and there I am again. You see me trying to get out of this mess. But no blood, no bruises. We walked away and lived to report another day.
The opportunity to cover news as it happens, as it breaks, is why I think most of us get into the news business.
You got to get out there if you want to do the job. Yeah, it's dangerous, and yeah, it's a bit scary at times, but it's also exciting, and it's what the job's all about.
We can't go anywhere!
Out of the madness, for now, Rick Leventhal, Fox News.
As you've just seen, to get you the most up-to-date news, our Fox crews sometimes get caught unexpectedly between protesters and police. But for some of our stories, confrontations are planned. That's next on Assignment Danger. Welcome back to Assignment Danger. Investigative journalists are always on the lookout for compelling stories, and for television, the story always needs attention-getting video. Fox News' Catherine Herridge uses a technique that rarely fails to deliver: the confrontation. Here's her report.
Did you tell her this job is illegal? Excuse me. If it's not illegal, why offer to pay her legal expenses if she's arrested?
Please get away from my phone.
What's your connection to the doctor?
No, sir.
Is he paying you?
If they just need to deck me, they're just going to do it. They really don't care.
Chasing down interviews, slamming doors, and screeching tires. Dangerous confrontations. The stakes are high, and the pressure is on you.
Your intuition, I think, really kicks in, and you get a sense of whether they're angry and they're going to take a swipe at you, or whether they're just terrified and they're going to run.
On assignment for Fox Files, the confrontation's often the culmination of months of work. In this case, an undercover investigation into brothels operating in, quote, nice, clean, suburban neighborhoods.
Yes. I'm Catherine Herridge from Fox Files. Are you soliciting this young girl for sex?
No. When I started doing these, one of the tips I had was, you've always got to watch the person's hands. Are they going for their pockets? You got to worry about a weapon, a gun, a knife.
It's really nice.
And when our operative is invited to this apartment for, quote, brothel training, I confront the recruiter.
I'm Catherine Herridge from Fox Files. Did you tell this woman the work is illegal? What are you talking about? What do you mean what we're talking about? We have it on tape. And if it's not illegal, why give her detailed instructions about how to know if it's an undercover cop?
Huh? I don't know what their thought process is, but I can't tell you. I mean, if I had $1 for every time somebody said, I don't know what you're talking about, you know, I wouldn't be rich, but I'd have a little bit of money stashed away.
We have it on tape.
Me?
Yes, you,
Excuse me,
on
ma'am.
tape. Excuse me.
Excuse me, can you get out of
Did
my
you
way?
tell her that this job is illegal?
Please leave.
And then there's Carmen, part of an apparent healthcare scam, including derelicts, shady doctors, and it's your tax dollars footing the bill.
Color and the people, I don't care. I care the color of the money. That is green. That's it.
And the longer we tracked her, the more our team knew we had to corner her no matter what. She felt no guilt, even when others did.
I do this, I'm committing crime. Yeah, I'm violating the law. I am guilty.
I don't feel guilty. You know why? Because the government is the richest government in the whole world, and we need to make money.
But Carmen was less willing to discuss her vision of the American dream when the camera was on her.
How can you say that you're not running a scam?
I don't know what he took.
Are you taking people to clinics and then paying them afterwards?
Of course not.
What do you mean, of course not? We have the evidence.
The light bulb went off. I thought, this woman is just ripping us off big time. Like, this is my tax money at work.
What's your connection to the doctor?
Nothing.
What are you doing in the office then? Running an x-ray machine. What are you doing running the x-ray machine? Are you a trained technician?
Of course not.
Of course not. Then what are you doing running an x-ray? What's the deal with that?
What's the deal? Because you're ripping me off and everyone else who pays taxes. What is the deal?
And when the audience responds, that's your payoff.
They did get some justice. It's, you know, pretty sweet for me and for the whole team, really.
Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
Coming up in the next half hour, more dangerous assignments. Amy Kellogg takes you to war-torn Chechnya. William LaJeunesse survives a deadly demonstration. And Steve Brown tells you about an interview he'll never forget. Those stories coming up after the latest headlines from the Fox News desk.
We can laugh about it now. I tell this story to people and they say, you are nuts.
Welcome back to Assignment Danger. I'm John Scott. We've told you that attention-getting video and compelling interviews are required when reporting a story, but sometimes a reporter also has to get personally involved. And William LaJeunesse goes the extra mile, as you'll see in this next report.
This is the best job in the world. The people you meet, the places you go, the assignments that you have, it's a blast. There's a few assignments that you get into and you don't know they're going to be dangerous, if you will, until you start it. Like the time here, I mean, we were out there blowing up airstrips with dynamite, following cocaine drug lords and blowing up their labs and their airstrips so they can't land. That was interesting.
I'm not going to talk to you.
Get out of my way.
The confrontation interviews are always unpredictable. There was a guy who was a disbarred lawyer. He was taking money from people. I hit him with a few questions, and instead of going through the door, he turns around and pushes me, and then he hits the cameraman, he pulls the camera down, the camera goes off, and then we come back on, and I'm trying to say, okay, we'll leave. Well, he didn't care at that point, he just wanted to assault us. And so he hits me, and you know, you're a reporter, so you can't really hit back because you've harassed him, you know, you've confronted him, and you don't want to cost the company, you know, thousands of dollars in judgments against you, so you kind of got to take it. It was kind of embarrassing, but made for great TV. This was just following the death of John F. Kennedy Jr., and there was a lot of speculation about what exactly occurred, and it began to come down to something called spatial disorientation. So you're talking to your experts on the phone, and they're telling you all about this, and you go, well, what's it like?
We're going to duplicate exactly what happened to JFK's plane.
They put a bag over your head, basically, so you can't see. So you don't know whether you're going right to left, up, or down, but you feel certain sensations on your body.
This is going to be active. You ready?
That right there was so wild. We're going down, 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 and I blacked out because the pressures become so great. Apparently your blood drains from your head, and the world begins to get narrow and narrow. And then boom, you're out. When your plane is going down, there's something like 300 pounds of pressure. And he says, try to lift up your leg, which would have allowed JFK to get his feet on the foot pedals to control the plane.
Okay, raise your foot. Oh, that's impossible to even get your feet off the ground.
Couldn't do it. The pressure was so great because you're going down. You can't do it. And you're trying to lift your leg. You can't do it. This, to me, was probably the scariest story. There's something called salvage diving, and this was after the crash of another airplane. your air is supplied from the surface. So they put on this heavy helmet. It's like 35 pounds. They're often copper. Sometimes they're fiberglass. They're really heavy. But your field of vision is just this big, okay, real little. And I'm not a claustrophobic person. You start hearing yourself breathing. Your mind begins to think, my God, if something happened, I could die standing in this suit. On the dock right here, I'd have no air at all.
Give him a little more air.
I remember almost wigging out on this story, and I said to myself, I cannot not go back with this story. You know, I'm not going to have a job, or they're going to be really mad at me if I don't come home with a story. You can't bail out now. It's fun. I mean, you die for these kind of stories. This is what I want to do. This is the best job in the world, bar none.
When we come back, riots, war, and an interview you'll never forget. Assignment Danger continues after this break. To Assignment Danger. Colombia is a stunningly beautiful South American country, but it's also an extremely dangerous place, especially for journalists. Our Fox News crew went to Colombia to report on cocaine trafficking and stood face to face with ruthless guerrilla and paramilitary units responsible for thousands of murders. Here's their story.
Colombia, South America, drug lords, death squads, and a cocaine crisis out of control. While the U.S. State Department warns Americans that traveling to Colombia could be hazardous to your health, our assignment, travel to the kidnapped capital of the world, find the farmers who grow the coca crop, the rebels who run the countryside, and investigate a political system powerless to protect its own people. Our team, photographer Tommy Chu, editor Michael Moore, producer Carlos Van Meek, and myself, correspondent Orlando Salinas.
Well, there definitely was a presence in the air of you know, maybe we didn't belong there.
But the brass at Fox gave us the green light. Report on the impact of a $1 billion U.S. aid package to help fight the drug war in Colombia. Annually, 3,000 people disappear there. 120 Americans, mostly tourists, snatched in the past 20 years. At least 14 of them murdered.
The crew knew it was going to be dangerous. In fact, we had a security meeting before we went to Colombia, and I assured everyone at that meeting that we would cancel any shoot where safety was compromised.
That safety tested as soon as we touched down. Someone knew somebody, a stranger, that would lead us through Colombia's coca fields.
We met what we thought was a migrant farmer who was going to just reap the coca plant, and he was reluctant because there was a lot of propaganda and paranoia down there, so he was reluctant to meet with us. So we agreed to meet with him the following morning. We gained his confidence and we hiked into the jungle.
Deep into the countryside, and we had the very strange feeling we were being watched. Within minutes, our Fox team is quietly, carefully, walking by raspachins, or scrapers, peasants paid to harvest the killer crop, who strip the coca leaves off their stems, strangers working for drug lords. I turn my back and report on what I'm seeing.
Before the sun comes up, these farmhands, basically hired help, come out here into the Colombian jungle and start stripping away these coca leaves. In about 6 weeks, these plants will be full again. And these farmhands will come back out here, and they'll strip these plants bare one more time.
Soon we're led into a makeshift jungle lab. Camouflage covers the treetops so government planes can't see what's going on. Mixing the coca leaves with gasoline and acetate, creating a mash that will later be turned into cocaine. Armed guards stand just feet away, keeping a watchful eye on our crew. We had nowhere to run, and they knew it.
I was a little nervous. I read from a State Department warning that it was the kidnapped capital of the world.
40,000 people killed in the past decade, peasants mostly, caught in the crossfire between ruthless rebels and a brutal paramilitary, both responsible for slaughtering entire towns, killing to keep $1 billion coke trade alive. For me, that's where our assignment took on a very real danger. Our contacts promised to guide us safely into southern Colombia, a stronghold for that country's oldest rebel group, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC. The FARC is blamed for thousands of kidnappings and murders, including dozens of journalists who reported on those atrocities. We went looking for their leader, the world's oldest guerrilla fighter, and we found him. 73-year-old Manuel Sure Shot Marulanda, the man who decides who lives by his rebel rules and who dies. His trademark towel thrown over his shoulder, he refused to speak with us on camera, but being the first and only Western TV journalist to meet Sure Shot face to face was a moment I will never forget.
It was strange at that point because this guy with one wave of his finger could have decided to have everybody there shot, the whole Fox News crew gone. No one would have known any better. That's the way it is out there. There are no rules. He could have decided to do that. That guy is really the lion, the king in that Colombian jungle. And to be standing there talking to this guy who many people know, many people agree, is responsible for killing thousands and kidnapping thousands in his own country, that for me was something that I will always remember.
Those moments are what journalists live for, catching it on camera and living to tell the story. Orlando Salinas, Fox News.
Getting personally involved in a story is not always the reporter's choice. Sometimes we have no way to stay out of the story, even when we know it will be dangerous. Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn has been all over the globe, but some of his most dangerous assignments have been right here at home. Here's his report.
Riots, protests, and civil unrest pose some of the most threatening and frightening conditions for reporters. This was the scene in New York City. Anger and outrage after the shooting of a young black teenager by a white mob in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn.
I think a riot can be one of the most dangerous places you can be as a reporter because the protesters think you're a cop, the cops think you're a protester, and that gives both sides an equal opportunity to hit you.
In Teaneck, New Jersey, another police shooting sparked more unrest.
You liars! We'll set your ass on fire!
Garbage cans were thrown and a police car overturned. Reporters could have gone from objective witnesses to injured victims.
It can be a very dangerous, chaotic situation that is totally uncontrollable, can move in an instant, can happen in a flash. During the middle of this riot, one of the camera crews got so unnerved that they just put that van in gear and put the metal to the pedal and drove out of there. The only problem was they left the mast up. But when that van pulled out of there, the mast just broke through power lines and caused explosions and sparks. That was some scene that really added to the drama and the tension that night of this riot, and some reporters were hurt.
Don't come in here and disturb us!
There are a lot of ways you can do this to try and keep yourself safe, but the bottom line is a press pass is not much of a bulletproof vest.
Thankfully, we try to take precautions, finding that balance between reporting a story and not becoming a part of it. I'm Eric Shawn, Fox News.
Up next, Fox News foreign correspondent Amy Kellogg takes you to the front lines in Chechnya to see the horrors of war. A bitter battle that's left thousands dead and wounded and many more homeless. That's next on Assignment Danger. One of the most dangerous assignments for a reporter is covering war. To keep safe, there are many precautions to take. Among them, just knowing who to trust. It's a lesson Amy Kellogg learned in Chechnya.
It's the guerrilla war that won't end. Many find it amazing that the Russian army can't put a substantially smaller group of Chechen separatist fighters down. But the Chechens feel they have everything to lose, so they hang on tenaciously in these treacherous mountains they know so well and outsiders fear.
Who's going to come get you if you get in trouble in Chechnya? There's nothing there. There's no representative of the American government. It's a scary place.
Journalists die in Chechnya, but they keep going because it is an amazing story. Russian cameraman Yuri Burak has done a lot of work for Fox. He's covered 5 wars, was shot during the civil war in the former Soviet Republic of Moldova, and had several extremely close calls during the First Chechen War in the mid-90s. But he loved the gig.
I was interested as a person to be in these extreme situations, to see how war changes people, their values, to see how people relate to one another. When you come back from such a trip, you see the contrast, and I like that.
Yuri headed back to Chechnya with me in February of 2000. Coverage of the second Chechen conflict was much more controlled than the first. You had to go with Russian army escorts or risk arrest. And the Russians decided when you could go.
Our turn actually came up on the anniversary of Stalin's deportation of Chechens to Central Asia. And it's a very, very bitter day for Chechens. And this particular year, they had promised massive terrorist actions on that day. So it was very tense. But also, it happens to be the old Red Army Day, the Russian military holiday. So where we were staying that night, Russian troops were reveling. They were driving around the compound in these military vehicles. And quite frankly, that was a little bit scary too.
The Russians we traveled with, for the most part though, were very good to us. They did protect us, but they also wanted to keep us away from Chechens who wanted to tell their side of the story. The Russian army was declaring that the second Chechen conflict was all but over at the time Yuri and I arrived. That was hardly true. But they had just taken the capital Grozny. Soldiers drove us around on armored personnel carriers. Grozny looked like the moon. It was completely flattened, and yet those with nowhere else to go continued living there. The Russians warned us that Chechen snipers were among those hunkered down in the ruins, which made excellent hiding places. We were told to keep our heads down and to beware the landmines. In order to get the full story of this bitter conflict, we also had to travel to the regions around Chechnya. But those weren't necessarily safe either.
Well, we wanted to go to Ingushetia because that's where the Chechen refugee camps are. But that was complicated because we had to go from North Ossetia to Ingushetia. And those two regions have had their troubles, and they're still very dangerous, and there are still kidnappings in both of those places. So you've got to find a reliable driver to take you there, and the ethnicity of the driver is important as well. For our route, we needed either a Chechen or an Ingush driver, not an Ossetian driver. So there's this elaborate network that you go through. And when we finally did make it to Ingushetia, we were told that we needed to hire an armed bodyguard.
In any event, it all worked out, and we count our blessings for that. Yuri's starting to think better to quit while he's ahead. He's got a wife and a young daughter now, and thinks covering wars might be a risk no longer worth taking.
The last few trips, it became increasingly difficult to film when you see the suffering of homeless children or refugees running away from their homes that have been shelled.
No doubt there are others ready to take over, because that story needs telling and shows no sign of going away anytime soon. Amy Kellogg, Fox News.
From war-torn Chechnya, we return to the U.S. for a nature story. The assignment started out tame, but soon turned wild and dangerous. That's next on Assignment Danger. Well, back to Assignment Danger. Although we try to be prepared for anything, a reporter never knows for certain what to expect. Next, our man Steve Brown tells how he and his cameraman had a confrontation of a very different sort, and they survived it barely.
When you're doing stories about wildlife, you try to get as close as you can, but sometimes you can get too close.
We can laugh about it now. I tell this story to people and they say, "You are nuts."
Photographer Robert Lee and I were sent to the Vince Schutte Wildlife Sanctuary because they do something there that the Minnesota Natural Resources Department does not approve of. They feed black bears. It started decades ago by Vince Schutte, who had problems keeping the bears away from his then logging camp.
So he began seeding food away from where he was going to work. He was going to work on the north side of the camp. He put food on the south side of the camp. The bears would go there. He'd work, and everything was fine.
We just need to make sure that children are contained, and we don't want them running around.
Over the years, word got out, and the camp slowly became a tourist attraction.
There's gold.
a place to see bears up close.
Now, what a better way to learn about bears than working on their behalf and working alongside of them.
We saw lots of bears and were warned of their potential danger by the woman running the sanctuary, Clarie Lee.
Right now, this bear is dominant, so watch how the other bear react as he approaches the other bears. This is a dominant bear.
But during our interview with Clarie Lee, we found out just how aggressive a black bear can be.
At one point during the interview, I did notice a bear come out of the woods. I start seeing the brush moving, and I know it's a bear.
This is Bardot, a 4.5-year-old female.
At the time, neither of us knew that Bardot had cubs in the trees nearby.
And it turns out that Mama, I think, thought that we were a little bit close to her cubs.
So the bear headed for a spot where food was put out the night before. A few minutes later, the bear interrupts us again.
And here's an evidence of the trust. You know, I have no food. And this bear trusts me, and look what a great opportunity. Now, obviously, this is where the double-edged sword is. Nobody should be approaching bears at such close range.
That's what you're doing.
And I'm doing, but I'm also, what a wonderful way to get people to connect.
This bear showed no fear. Just paraded right through the interview. And I'm about 25 feet away, so I feel relatively safe. I don't know how Steve felt, but I felt okay. I was backing up. I was backing up because I did not know what this animal was doing. I was about 10 feet, maybe 10 feet away from Clarie.
Here's a bear right here. There's no food to coax him here. This bear is coming because he wants to be here. These are wild animals.
It was at that point that the bear did what they call a bluff charge.
There's no enclosures, and there you see natural behavior.
And we're continuing with the interview, and the animal does it again. And at that moment,
bluff charge. She doesn't.
My body was just surging with adrenaline at the time.
But the encounter with the bear at that point was over. Bardot wandered off.
Did that make an impression on you?
Sure did.
Yes.
Thankfully, it wasn't anything tragic. But I think we did get some interesting tape. It was a tremendous experience. I'm glad I had it, but I'm even happier that I walked away.
For Assignment Danger in Orr, Minnesota, Steve Brown, Fox News.
Thanks for joining us for Assignment Danger. And thanks to our Fox News team for their fearless dedication to bring you the stories. For more information about Fox News Channel, our reporters and news crews, become a Fox fan today. Sign up at foxnews.com. You'll get newsletters, special offers, and even a free gift. Up next, today's top news headlines.